I so I start the recording. I will make small introduction. By the way, John, can you please share your maybe little presentation? I mean, file, if it's not hard for you. I give you sharing permissions.
I hope we give it to John Gidenji.
Okay, so in this workshop, we will cover some topics. First, John will show us how to install, how to do something in Blender, and how to create 3D model for yourself. Um, and the second part will be about how to place your model as an NFT in one of our marketplaces. Because yes, by the way, as you can see, he have done this also in Blender. But the main idea of this workshop that first you will know how to start with this, how to create something there, and then how to place your work again on one of marketplaces, for example as a GIF file, because as you know, in NFT you can place 3D models, pictures, art, and so on, a lot of different possibilities. That's why it's one of the options. So after it, I gave the word to John. Um, Now it's your
Yes,
course. Yes.
thank you very much. I hope you can get me clearly.
Yes.
Now, here we have, I've already made uh, the presentation of how I will go about this, and I had an idea of creating an abstract, valuable, and interesting artwork with Blender, and then I showed it step by step. So I have another one. We start by creating the crystal in the Blender, and before getting to creating the crystal, we have to learn everything that we need to we use in this creation. So the first thing I'll be doing is explaining every tool and demonstrating how it works in Blender. So right away, let me load the image that has the process. So add image reference, then so as you can see, anyone who wishes to follow along needs to download Blender. Blender is the 3D software used for creating animation, 3D models, and also rigging, something I will talk about later. So you download from www.blender.org/download, and it's a free software that it's open source. It will be free forever. So I've outlined the process here, and as you can see, the creation process will happen in a number of workshops. So which means we'll not finish everything today because it will be a long and technical process. And the stage one will learn the interface that you're seeing here. And after that, I answer the questions that anyone might be asking. From there, we go to stage two, whereby we set up the scene for the animation, for the crystal. You get as we continue. Then we go to the modeling of the abstract crystal-like object. So after setting up the scene, we'll create the crystal here step by step. And that will be the end of today's workshop. Then in the next workshop, we'll shade it, we'll add the hand, and then we'll animate it and upload it to the NFT marketplace. So I'll go ahead and delete this reference image and set everything to default. So if you download Blender from blender.org/download, this is what you will see. You'll see a splash screen. Like now we are in Blender version 2.93, which is displayed at the bottom, at the top right of this splash screen. And one of the things I would like to consider before getting started is that you come to edit, then scroll down to preferences and enable some important add-ons that we will use along the way. So come here to the search, make sure that you are in the add-ons, then come here to search and type node, and you see a list of nodes. So here you enable node wrangler, the last one here. You make sure it's checked. Then come here down to input. If you are using a laptop and not a desktop, you might be using a laptop that does not have the numpad, the numbers on the side. So you come here and emulate numpad, which means you can use the default numbers when working. Then you go down to navigation and make sure you check this orbit around selection. I talk about it practically. And this one, zoom to mouse position. So mine is checked. Then down to key map. And then in this software, for me, since I started, I like selecting with right click. So mine is set to right click. Yours might be set to left by default. And for you to follow along with me as your teacher, it's better to have it on the right. Then with that, you are good to go. So you make sure that the autosave preferences is on, and now you can exit. Now on the left side, we have the toolbar, the toolbar, which has the tools that you will use mostly in the 3D viewport to manipulate, to move, to rotate objects around the scene. Like, for example, here we have the cursor. This one, first of all, this one is the cursor, and you can see it here. This one is the cursor. So the cursor, as you can see, it's not at the center because I had tampered with it. I had left clicked away from where it was. Like if I left click there, it gets out. Left click there. And because I wanted to go back to the center, I hit Shift S on the keyboard. Shift S, and then cursor to world origin. So as you can see, it's at the center. So when you open a new Blender scene, you will have a cube there's a cube that I had deleted before starting. So you'll find a cube here, and then you'll find a light, and you'll find a camera. So just like you have a camera, just like in the real world, the subject and the lighting, like you do the normal video shooting, but now this one is in the software. So if this cursor, if I place this cursor here and add an object, like add a mesh, then add another cube, it will be placed to where the cursor is at that moment. So let me delete. Down here, we have the move tool. This is the move tool, and it is used to move an object that you have selected. And we do selection by right clicking. For example, I right click on this cube, and you see it's highlighted with a yellow outline. Let me turn off the yellow outline, and it does not have the controls to show whether you move to the left or to the right. We call it the gizmos. So if you click here to the move, and the gizmos appears. So if I left click and drag along this red axis, the red axis is called x-axis. So I can drag, and if I wanted, I'm comfortable with it at that point, I left click, I release. I can also move in that direction or in the other direction. We have a shortcut key, which simplifies work. Maybe if you want to do, you are doing a bigger project and you want to save time. So this one is the shortcut is G. You hit G on the keyboard. G stands for grab. So it's like we grab this cube and then we move the mouse, and this is how it starts moving. So as I have mentioned, this red line here represents the x-axis, and it's represented by X on the keyboard. So if I hit G on the keyboard to grab, and then X, it constrains it along the X-axis. And if I move the mouse, I move to and fro the mouse, it will move along that axis. Now, the green one is the Y-axis. This green one is the Y-axis. So if I hit G, then Y, I move it along the Y-axis, like that. And then we have the Z-axis. The Z-axis, which moves up and down. So if I hit G, Z, and we are moving up and down like that. And so that is, now, if I'm moving this object, you can see on the right here, you can, let me, for example, move it along the X-axis, you will see the location X will start changing. So as you can see, the location here, it's changing as I move on the 3D viewport. And by default, it is supposed to be 0. That means if I want to take my object back to where it was, by default, I just come here and write 0. Then on the Y-axis, type 0, enter, and 0, enter. Then it goes back to the origin, the center of the world. This, and as you can see, it's at the center. So if you don't want to follow all that process and assume that the object is so far and you don't want to use a lot of time coming here, you hit Alt G. As we remember, as we said, the shortcut for moving is called G, which means grab. And if you want to reset the grabbing that you made, you hit Alt G on the keyboard, and that resets everything to 0, like that. So that is the transform move tool. Down to the rotate tool. This one is the rotation tool, and this one is the Z axis. As you can see, I can now rotate along the Z axis. I can rotate along the Y axis and the X axis, which I mentioned that the Y axis, just like in the moving tool, is this green, and the X is the red, and the Y is and the Z is the blue. So that way we have rotated randomly. And if I want to rotate using shortcut keys, I hit R on the keyboard. The rotation shortcut key for rotation is R. Like if I hit R on the keyboard and then move the mouse, it starts rotating like that. And if I want to concentrate along a certain axis, let's try in this case the Y axis, which is the green one. I hit R on the keyboard, then Y, and then start moving. You see now it rotates concentrated to the Y axis. And now maybe I want to reset all this so that I can go to the next step, which is scale. I can do it by coming here and type 0, like we did in the previous one. 0, 0, 0. You see, it resets everything. Let me Control Z on the keyboard and show you a different method. So you want to set all this to 0. You can, one way is by clicking Alt on the keyboard, like you did to Alt G. In this case, we do Alt R. So Alt R, and everything resets. As you can see here, we have 0, 0, 0. Let me Control Z again and show you another style that I use. So I come here and hover my mouse, my cursor along the top one, which is the rotation X, and then left click and drag down, and it selects all of them, and I type 1, 0, and all the numbers changes. That one is a trick that you might use later as we get advanced. But if you just got that, if you want to reset everything, you hit Alt R on the keyboard.
We cannot see your screen.
Oh, yes. Allow me to share with the other screen.
Okay.
Just a moment.
Hope everything okay with you. Oh, okay.
Nice. So here we have a scene. I was using the other laptop. I forgot to connect it to the charge. Here we have the default cube as we had in the previous laptop, and we had reached a point where we had reset all the rotation, and we are at the rotation, and it was in a random rotation mode. So I hit Alt R on the keyboard and reset everything to default, as you can see. Now, by now we are done with the rotation and the location, which is the move tool and the rotation one. Now let's go to the scale one. As the name suggests, we need to scale it bigger, or to make it bigger or smaller. So if I left click on this white circle and drag, you see it becomes bigger or smaller as I drag my mouse. If I want to scale it along the x-axis, which is the red one, I click on this axis and then like that. If I want to make it tall along the z-axis and along the y-axis, like that. So, and if I want to reset everything to where it was, I just hit Alt S. The shortcut key for scaling is S. Remember, the shortcut key for moving is G. The shortcut key for rotation is R. And now the shortcut for scaling is S. So if I hit S on the keyboard and drag my mouse wheel, it moves to and from. Now, if I hit Alt S on the keyboard, it scales back to normal. And through that, you see here, it resets everything to 1. By default, the scaling is usually at 1, because if you set it at 0, you will not see the, like for example, let's set everything to 0 and you'll see that you will see nothing. So you cannot see the object. So it's better that it's left at 1, Control Z, and as you can see here, it's back to its default. Down here we have the transform tool. All these transform tools represented by 1. If I click it, that means I have the move tool, I have the rotation without having to come here, and I have the scaling. I can do, yeah, I can do everything in using 1 tool. And if I want to reset everything, I hit Alt R, Alt G, Alt S, and everything is to its default settings. Very good. Now we have just covered the toolbar here. Now on top here, yeah, on top here we have the file whereby you can load and you can open a new file and continue, just like any other software. Here we have here it's where you import like it had been mentioned in the beginning. You can import objects in the scene and start working with them. Like you can import 3D models like of a human character, an animal character, and start animating. So from here file is where you import it. Then you have the edit. Edit is where you do the undo. And you remember before when we started, we went to the preferences. Here is where you set everything to be the way you like. We have the render. This one comes later after you have created everything in your scene and put the lighting and made an animation. Here it's where you render the animation and get a video out of it, or maybe an image. And yeah, then we have the window, just like any other window. I don't use this most of the time. And then you have help, where you have the manual, tutorial, support, which I also don't use often. Nice. So here we have the different workspaces depending on what you are doing. Like for example, in this workspace, it's the default workspace for Blender after you open it. For example, right now we are in the layout window, workspace that is. And if I move to the modeling is where you manipulate this object. So if I click modeling, you see that you can see this object in a different way, and this toolbar changes, and everything now is different depending on what you are doing. So here is where you can manipulate the object the way you want and create something out of it. So Control Z. This is where we use the workspace you will use when creating a crystal, as it is demonstrated in the image that I shared on the forum. Here we have the sculpting workspace. The sculpting workspace is mainly used when you are dealing with organic stuff and irregular surfaces. For example, if you want to create stones for a scene, if you want to create a nose for a cartoon, you will use these tools. This one we'll get into later when we will be creating a character, and maybe organic stuff like trees, stones, animals, and so on. Then we have the UV editing. This one is if I want to place an image on this cube, I use this workspace. If I want to you can see in some adverts whereby we have a 3D model with an image on it, maybe a brand. It is usually done here in Blender. Then we have the texture paint. Here we can paint depending on what you want. To, maybe I want to shade these sides, these ones. I want to maybe create an emoji on this surface. But before doing that, I need to first come to the UV editing, then to the texture editing. Let me make sure some settings are right here. Now, I've changed these render sizes because I'm about to go to the shading tab, and the shading tab is a bit makes the laptop or your computer to lag because it needs a very powerful graphics card. So it's advisable to first reduce the render and viewport samples. So we just wait for a moment until and now we are once we are here, there's no more lagging behind. So here is where we change the object color, add textures, add realism in a manner that, in a way that we want. Then after that, we have the animation workspace. And in the animation workspace, we have, this is the camera, as I mentioned in the beginning. And this camera, this workspace is divided into two, as you can see. So here is how you see the camera, is how the camera is seeing the object. This is the camera looking at the object. And if I move the object, the camera shows us how the object, and if I move the camera, the same case happens. So if you want to animate and use the method that you have talked about, now here you can turn off the toolbar by hitting T on the keyboard and hitting again for it to appear. So if I move, you see, it reflects here, it updates on the camera, shows us how it is. Then we have the rendering. Here is where you see, after you render an image, it comes here. For example, let's render an image just a bit. And after you render, this is how the camera is seeing. So it has captured an image, it has shot. Like if it were in real life, we could say it has taken a shot. Then we have the compositing. These are the way you are going, it's becoming advanced. So in the compositing workspace is where you can add image on top of another image and color grade your stuff and add the lighting and so on and so forth. It's a different topic on its own. Then we have a new feature that was added of late, and it's for us motion graphics, but it's new in the system, which will require new tutorials and new, and I will update it on the course. It's a powerful workspace that uses geometry nodes. It uses nodes to manipulate stuff in the scene. Then you have the scripting, where you can create your own add-ons and plugins, and also you can import other templates. And this one is so big, you can also write because Blender is an open source software, you can write it yourself, you can change stuff yourself, and you can customize it the way you want. So let's go back to the layout tab, and I want to load the image, that the presentation one. So I come here, add image reference. Then I go to where yes, then so I think I have covered what you, at least you have, what different workspaces are used in different jobs. Like in this case, we only need the layout tab and the modeling to come up with the crystal object. So as I mentioned, in stage 1, we learn the interface, and that one we have already looked at it. Then after that, we have the question and answer session, which if you have any question, I'm ready to hear before we go to the next step of setting up the scene. Now, any question is welcome for now. And maybe if the video will be posted on the YouTube, in the Everscale Academy YouTube, I'll still answer the questions in the comments. Any
Okay,
question?
if somebody have questions, please raise your hand and ask them.
Simple question. Sorry for not raising my hand. How many hours did it take you to get this good at Blender, my friend?
It looks.
Come again?
Sorry, a little bit of background noise. How many hours have you put into this? How long have you been doing Blender, and how long did it take you to get this good?
Oh, I started back in 2019, and I'm an artist by my talent. It's a talent that I do. I wanted to turn my images into characters that I see on movies and adverts. Yeah. So in 2019.
That's brilliant. And are you planning on making some further courses? I know when I tried to get to grips with Blender, one of the features I really liked was the ability to set and light a scene. So that you can, like you say, make artistic two-dimensional pieces from three-dimensional scenery. Yeah, I mean, do you have plans to go into the details on the Everscale Academy?
Oh, yes. I am planning to go big into that direction and touch into details until there's so much that I've not touched in this software that I need to go into. So I'm very passionate to go to that direction.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Ben, for these questions. Yes, I hope, by the way, you want to add something, that I hope that we will continue to make such courses, because Academy is not only about developing, for example, dbots and so on, but we have courses about this too. But Academy, it's about education at all. That's why, yes, I hope we will continue such courses more. Okay, does anybody have questions? 3, 2, 1. So I don't see hands or questions. I think we can continue.
Nice, thank you for that question. And now let's move on. So the second stage is setting up the scene. And in setting up the scene, we'll be guided by the sketch that I did, the pencil sketch. And first of all, I delete this cube. Then I load the reference image that will guide me. And also delete this one, I load it later. So our goal is to create an abstract, valuable, and interesting artwork. So the idea was to create a glowing abstract like crystal, like object floating in the air. It looks like a gem, and a hand comes out from below and wants to hold it, but the crystal is irregularly. So the animation will be like a looping animation, whereby the hand will be always be trying to get the crystal and not getting it. It will be satisfying, and a satisfying animation, that kind of. Now down here, I sketched it. I sketched the idea. So this is the hand, and this is the crystal. This is the crystal. And now we need to set up the scene. I didn't touch about the background because I could not draw the background on the paper, but the background will be like a sci-fi environment with maybe like glowing particles falling on the ground and floating around, just like the crystal. And now the crystal on the hand are moving up. Yeah, and the camera is following. So you see our cursor is not at the world origin. So I hit Shift and S on the keyboard like I showed, then cursor to world origin. And now this is what will guide us. So I want to add a ground on this because we are setting up the scene. I want to add a ground and a background of this whole animation. So how to add an object on the scene? You can hit add on the keyboard. You can hit here add or Shift A on the keyboard. So if I hit add, then we mostly use mesh. We have all this stuff, but for now mostly we use meshes and curves. Curves will come later. So mesh, and we have objects like plane, we have objects like cube, circle, a sphere, icosphere, cylinder, and cone, and so much. For now, we need a plane. A plane is a flat. It will be a flat surface that will be just simple, and it will just be like a sheet. So let's try this time round. Shift A on the keyboard. Shift plus A, then mesh, then plane. You see, we have the plane here that its scale is 1, 1, 1. Now I left I had selected the transform, so as you can see, it has all this stuff, but they are annoying at some point because you cannot operate well. So I go back to this one, and I wish to use the shortcut keys so that you can also get them and make use of them. They really save time. So I hit S on the keyboard, then pull out my mouse, or just type a number like 30 on the keyboard, that you enter. So you have a plane. This is the plane. This is our ground, and now we need another background for this background of the camera will be facing straight like this. So we need another vertical background. So one way is by hitting Shift A on the keyboard and adding another plane, or by duplicating this one. You can duplicate this one by coming to Object, then scroll down to Duplicate Objects. But you can see here it says Shift D on the keyboard. So you'd like to use the shortcut keys to save time. So you hit Shift D, and then you cannot see where it went because it is at the same location and rotation and like the one that we have copied. But if I grab G on the keyboard, you can see it leaves another one there. And if I hit G and I'm not comfortable with that location, I right click to undo the movement. So right click and it goes back. So what we need now is to rotate the object, is to rotate this one 90 degrees along the x-axis. So if I hit this one and start rotating, you see it rotate along the x-axis. This one is the y-axis. Now I want to rotate along the y-axis, x-axis 90 degrees. So I type 90 on the keyboard like that, or I hit R on the keyboard, then X, then 90, and here you have it. But it is too close to the camera, so we want to move it behind. So we come here to the move tool and move it along the y-axis like that. So if we come to the front view, you go to the front view by hitting on this Y like that, or hitting 1 on the keyboard. Then we hit 1. If you emulate, if you hit, remember when you came to edit preferences and edit preferences, and you came to input and you emulated numpad, that means you can hit 1 in even the normal keyboard, the basic one. So I hit 1 and I go to the front view. If I want to go to this view straight, I hit 3 and you see things this way. So because I want to distinguish this one and this one, so that when working around the scene, I cannot have problems. I come here to, you see this one, we call it viewport shading. It's this one this way dull because it does not consume computer RAM. So I come here, then there's a drop down menu here and hit matcap, then hit random. So if each object will be assigned a different color so that you can distinguish them well and you can be able to work easily. Like if I hit Shift D, it is assigned another one, Shift D, another one. So I can be able to distinguish all of this. But for now, I just need the two of them. So Control Z, Control Z, Control Z to undo, just like in any other software. Now, so that means this one is our ground and this one is our wall, our background, like that. And now, if I go to the front view like that, you see I cannot see the other plane because it's straight and its scale along the y-axis, its scale along the z-axis is so small. So I cannot see it. So I need to do something so that I can see it. And that opens up an opportunity to look at these tools here. So you can see a spanner here. So that spanner does a lot of work. Like if I click it, it has modifiers that modify the object on the scene. So if I hit one with the keyboard, you see it's a thin line, and hit add modifier, then go down to the solidify, and you see it has some thickness now, and that can help me when working in all angles to look at it well. And I can also do the same to this one and solidify like that. So you have the wall and the ground. Now everything will work along the near the camera. So, or we can work and then add the camera later. So if we are in front view, that means our crystal can be somewhere here. And then our camera will look at it from this angle, and then it will rise this way. So our crystal our crystal will be here. Then it will be rising up, and a hand will be wanting to hold it. So a hand will be trying to hold it, which means our crystal will be placed somewhere here. So let me erase. So yes, a recap of what we have done. We added the plane by coming to add mesh plane. So it is here where the 3D cursor, then we delete it, add mesh plane. Then after we added, we scaled it 30 times. Then we rotated it 90 degrees along the x-axis. Then we moved it along the y-axis to move further from the camera. And now we have added a modifier to both of them. One is solidify and another one is, yeah, both of them solidify. So they have a thickness that will help us in viewing. Let me touch something on navigating along the 3D viewport that I had not mentioned. The way I'm navigating now, I'm using the middle mouse button. The middle mouse button of the mouse, and then dragging like that, yeah. And I can move left to right, which is we call panning, by hitting shift on the keyboard and then holding the middle mouse button. And now you can see I can move this. The other method is by holding this hand here. So I can left click and drag like that. Zooming in and out is by scrolling the mouse wheel in and out, or using this, left clicking on this one and dragging. Here we have the camera icon. The camera icon shows how we view from the camera. So if I hit the camera, it goes to the camera view. If the shortcut for this one is O on the keyboard, 0 on the keyboard, like that, 0, 0, like that. And if I want my camera to look at this image here from this angle, I hit Control Alt 0 and my camera comes here. So if I go back to the normal 3D viewport, you see it positions itself, it aligns itself to the view that I had selected. So like that, And the camera has the same settings like in the physical camera that we have. So it has the focal length, it has the depth of field, and so many stuff that you will find in the normal camera. So yes, I think I'm about to go to the next step. Let me load the reference image and move it. Alt G, Alt R, RX 90, then G, Z, then scale, then GX, then 1 on the keyboard to view it in the front view. Now we have set up the scene whereby I have shown where we will place the crystal, and then we get to the next step where we model the abstract object, crystal object. So any questions so far?
as always, free. If somebody has questions, just ask. And as always, 3, 2, 1. And I see no questions. So let's move forward. Maybe somebody has questions after seeing it sometime.
Nice. So let me delete this one. We select by right clicking, then we delete on the keyboard, select. You can delete by also hitting X on the keyboard and then allow. So now we have our 3D cursor positioned where we want our crystal to be. So I hit one on the keyboard, then add or Shift A, then add a cylinder. After you add a cylinder, there's a menu that will pop up here. You click on it, then type eight vertices here, like that, then 5 here, like that. So then come here to the move it this way, and this one is the one that we start with. This one is the model, it's a cylinder. It's a cylinder with 8 vertices. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's an octagon. And as I mentioned when I was talking about layouts, workspaces, we have the modeling workspace here. So you can shift to the modeling workspace and you have it here and work from here. But we can also customize the layout because we have already made so much changes in this layout. We wish to move on with it. So in this mode that we are, it's called object mode. You cannot manipulate this object so much apart from scaling, apart from the normal transformation methods. So we want to shift to the, if you come to the modeling, you realize that we are in the edit mode, and it can do the same here. So object edit mode. And here we have, you can select this vertex and hit G and move the mouse and it moves to and from. So you select this one and then X on the keyboard and hit delete faces. Then select them again and hit E, then S, then 0 on the keyboard, like that. Let me repeat that process. There are 2 methods of doing the same, and one was coming in my mind. So we said selecting, you select by right clicking. You can also do the same by left clicking and dragging to select all of them. Another way is by clicking Alt on the keyboard, and between the 2 of them, I hit Alt on the keyboard, Alt on the keyboard, and right click. You see, it selects all of this. And then I hit X on the keyboard and hit delete the faces. The faces is all these, like the faces we have in a box. So this one is the face, this one. I can move the face. Then you have the edges. I can select one edge here, or this one, and I can grab it and start moving. Then you have the vertex, which are like points. So I can move the points to and fro like that. So in this case, I can either Alt, right click and select all of them, or I can Alt the same, or I can just come to the face select mode and select it. And then X on the keyboard. Don't delete vertices. If I delete vertices, I'll delete all of this. Like for example, if I make a mistake and delete vertices, this is what I'm left with. So I make sure I delete the face and leave the rest. So X faces. Yes, so now we have a hole here. Then we come here to the right click on the edge select mode or the vertex, then select all of them again by Alt right click, then E to extrude. We extrude all of this, so we hit E to extrude. And if I move my mouse, it starts extruding itself, and I don't want that. So E, then scale it by hitting S on the keyboard, then scale it to 0 like that. Then come here to this move tool and pull it up like that. Then come here down and select all of them and hit S on the keyboard like that, then like that. So we have an asset here. For now, it's not an irregular, it's regular. So you can manipulate this one by selecting and grabbing. This one depends on what you are comfortable with, and if you want to play around with them. This one has no specific way of doing. It's as long as we'll have a crystal after this. Like that. You can make it a bit irregular, but we'll make it a regular still more in the shading tab. So I select this one again, then some of the things come along as you continue. I can try to rotate along the Z axis by hitting R on the keyboard and Z. So it will be a bit rotated. It will not be so perfect. Like now, I want to select a few of them and change how so that we cannot have a very flat base because it's an irregular stuff. So having selected all of them, I can come here to select and select random. So I can select all of this, then Control I on the keyboard to select the other ones, Control I, then hit hide on the keyboard. Hide this by hitting H. So if I hit H on the keyboard, I hide all of them, and I want to select all of these at once. So I hit A on the keyboard. A is to select all. Then I come here, select, check and deselect. So this one selects, it's like the checkerboard. One is selected, one is not selected, one is selected, one is not selected. But you don't want that. You want randomly. So I come here, select random. So it selects for itself randomly. Then I rotate in a certain way. And then I hit Alt H to unhide the ones that I hid. So Alt H, and we have our object there. So one on the keyboard, like that. So let's save our object, our file by coming here to file, then save or Control S, then documents, then save it. Workshop 1, workshop one.blend. So then you can, let's use our modifiers here. This spanner-like object. So we come into the spanner, and we want these sharp edges to stop being sharp. They are too sharp. So you come here to add modifier and bevel. So beveling, this one is like making them not so much. Assume like right now they can pierce you, they can inject you. So you come here and add segments, then add amount, segments, then you can also add the angle. So far nothing has changed. So you want to change the depth, percentage, and work with percentages, and percent, angle, and profile. This usually happens with newer versions of Blender. So you find that the modifiers have changed. Let me load it again. Bevel and amount and segment. Default. Then I hit W, shade smooth on the keyboard. And if I hit shade smooth, you can see that we are having weird shadings that are appearing. So to solve this problem, we come here, add. It's not a problem, by the way, it's just something that you would not like. So hit edge split, a modifier called edge split that brings it back to how it is. Now, because our bevel is not working in object mode, we go back to the edit mode by coming here, then edit mode, or hitting tab on the keyboard. If I hit tab on the keyboard, then come here and select everything, then Control B. Control B means beveling. So that, so I have my bevel in the from the edit mode, and I have turned on the overlays by clicking on this. If you don't want to see these lines, click on these overlays. Then come here to the bevel. Now from here, you can do so much. Like I can come here and click custom. If I click custom, you take a look at this one. So if I click that one and that one and that way, and get very much closer to the, you'll find that, then add segments. So segments, and the width like that. I think it's not bad, it's good. This one depends on one's creativity. You can try out these things, you can do it your way. If you follow this video and create yours, you can play. It's not, this one is not mandatory that you leave it this way. You can play with it until you are happy with it. Now let's leave it there. And since, let's go back to object mode by hitting tab on the keyboard or clicking object mode. And you remember our bevel didn't work, so we remove it. And we have our bevel from the edit mode. Let me bring back the overlays. So we have our crystal there, and it's cool. I see, like, it's cool. I would like to hear how you see this crystal, or if you feel like you can make it. It's if you are not confused, like it's a crystal, and we continue playing with it. How do you see it? How do you like the crystal?
It's a question to others. Yes. Hello. Sorry, do you hear me?
Yes, I do hear you. So that is our crystal. And now the irregularity will add it in the shading tab. So in this mode, we are in the layout tab. So I want us to go to the shading tab, like that. And if I turn off the overlays, you can see everything is white because we have not assigned materials to the objects. So I turn it back, and I want us to shade, to give this wall a base material by right clicking on it, and make sure it's selected by seeing a yellow line highlighted. Then click new, then call it wall, and hit enter. So when it's like that, you can now come here to the base color and change it to the color that you like. Then to add realism, here you swipe add the metallic. If you wanted to have a reflection with roughness, there's so much. I just create base materials, and then in the next video is where when creating the hand is where we'll create materials for in details and give it a sci-fi look. But for now, we give them materials to be able to distinguish them here. So I right click on the other one and call it floor. For the floor, I give it a bit metallic, then blue, dark blue, like that. Yes. So this one is called the viewport shading. And now we have the final shading is called the render view. So if I click on the render view, we come here, and it's so dull because we don't have a world. Like you can see, we are using the lights. We are assuming that we are it's dusk and we don't have any other light source. So this one is the only light source here. If I move it, you can see we have the shadows. And for this case, I will not use this mode is called EV. Like if you come here to this radio like stuff icon, and you here see render engine. Right now we are using an engine called EV, and we can switch from EV to Cycles. This one is the one that will give us a very good crystal-like shading, but it uses something called ray tracing. You can see like it is loading. It uses ray tracing, which helps so much in giving realism. So if I select this one, then I click add on the keyboard, then can call it crystal base. So in the reference image that I had loaded, it showed that the hand is moving up, and as the hand is moving up, trying to reach for the crystal is moving in an irregular shape. Now we want to create that shading that will cause when the hand is moving to the near this object, it will start moving irregularly, like it's running away from the hand, and we'll achieve that by coming here to this tab, to this. So we come here to the shading tab, node editor. We right click here, then join areas, join to that, so that you can have enough space, then join areas like that. Nice. Now we have the same way we did in the viewport, whereby we come to add object or shift A. We do the same here in the shading tab. I want to hide this. So nice. Now let's add shift A and come down to the vector and click displacement like that. Then connect displace to displacement. Now you can see nothing is changing. So you come here to this shading icon, then you come here to settings and click on bump only, then say displacement and bump. So as you can see, we are getting a weird shape, but it's cool. We sort out in a moment. So let me make this one small so that you can have enough space. Now come here to add texture, Voronoi texture. Then you remember when we were starting, we came here to edit preferences and came to add-ons and enabled node wrangler. Remember, so when the node wrangler is enabled, it saves you time. So if I click Control plus T, Control T, this one pops up. Control plus T, and now I can move the scaling from smaller to great. I can move the randomness, then connect to you connect color to height, and if you move the mid-level, and look at it from in this way, you can see that we're having some changes. Let me turn on something that called denoising here. We put denoising and take it down to 6, then 32 or 8. Now when you have that, now we want to control the scale of this object, of this Voronoi. So if I scale this object, or if I move this object, I want the shade, this bumpiness and displacement 1 to start moving irregularly. So I'll come here to the scale, then right click and say add driver. Then come here to VAR and delete until you're just left with VAR, then object, and it was a cylinder, so you make sure it's a cylinder. And because we are dealing with the scaling, we come here to type X scale, like that. Then we come here to right click to the Y scaling, then Y, add driver, turn everything, delete everything and leave it to VAR. Then come here to object, then cylinder, then scaling, Y scale, and do the same to the other one. Let me turn off render view, then add driver, VAR, then object, cylinder, like that. So if I come back to this mode and turn off the noising, and now if I scale in any other scale on the Z axis, the shape, the movement distorts as I scale. If you can take a look clearly, you can see that it's not straight, it's not very moving in a regular way. So I'll do the same event to the location. Right click, add driver, then cylinder. Let me turn off this and do the same to all of them. Right click, add driver, delete, then cylinder, then Y location, then right click, no, right click, add driver, and delete up to there, then cylinder. So if I go back here and move it, it moves with, it updates the location, and it's how organic it is. So if now I can add, I can come here and back to the layout, then shift A, shift plus A, and add a sphere and scale it. Then come here to the shading workspace, and there's a drop down on the left here, and call it crystal base. So you can see any material that I assign to this, any object that I assign to this material has the shading, has this effect. So if I scale along the Z axis, so G, Z, S, if I scale that way, it updates. So having created this node network, I can now assign the material to any object, any object that I now use to, when the hand is coming near the crystal, the irregularity starts occurring, and now the animation becomes perfect as we want. So next time I touch on modeling the hand, then I will continue shading the crystal to be the crystal-like, and having the glass effect and having everything that a crystal would have, and also shading the environment to be like a sci-fi scene, and then rendering the animation. Then in the next step would be, now after having that animation, we upload it on the marketplace. So I think that's enough for today. And if you can see it now in the viewport shading, you cannot see the effect because it has to be in rendered view. So this way you have the crystal as it is. And if you go to the rendered view, you'll see it, the effect starting to take place. So back to the layout tab, and if there's any question, I'm ready to answer.
So thank you. Yes, if somebody have questions, feel free to ask them. So can you please share one more time what is the final result of this part of workshop? Some resume, some conclusion.
Right now, because I've not yet created the animation, I just load the presentation, the image that I had, the reference image, and documents. So at the end of this animation, we have the end of this whole workshop, we have an animation of this hand trying to reach for the crystal, and the crystal is moving. I've explained that the crystal will be rotating and moving upwards, and the hand trying to reach the crystal, and it's not reaching the crystal in a satisfying way. And then the camera will be following both of them. And in this workshop stage 1, we have just created we have modeled the abstract crystal-like object. And in the next one, we will give it material, which means shading. I have given a bit materials in this first workshop, and now in the next one, we shall advance to giving it materials that look like a crystal and having that glossiness effect, then modeling the hand, and now rendering the animation. So for now, we already have the crystal like object, and
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, I think that other improvements will be done in second part of workshop. By the way, for everybody, maybe it's not some big or complex model, but it's made step by step, and everybody can repeat these results. Because, as you know, there is a lot of some open source models in the internet, But with this tutorial, you can just not maybe copy paste some results, but start to look deeper as a professional and start making something. That's why it's very valuable. And just okay, I see you stop and just I think that maybe John have some technical problems, but I will continue. So to the conclusion, I wanna say big thanks to John for his workshop, for his first part of workshop. And so we will continue this and we'll make some improvements. And so in the final lessons, you will know how to create something step by step, not without ready examples or something like this, step by step. You can look this video on YouTube, for example, and repeating all actions which John do. So thank you one more time. Okay, so yes, thank you one more time. I will now stop this record.